So if there's one thing I know you guys are not yet sick of, it's talking about Nintendo's weird 2020. And in no surprise, that is what we're going to talk about a little bit more today, because there has been a little bit of an update about what Nintendo might be looking at doing throughout the rest of 2020. It's definitely kind of obvious stuff. It's the thing that people have kind of laughed at, like, of course we already know this information, and now we're just hearing Nintendo clarify it, so it's not that big of a deal. And I get it, that's pretty true. But honestly, I just really love talking about this stuff, and it does seem like a lot of you guys do enjoy it, even though we know we're constantly only able to talk about how Nintendo's being really slow and quiet right now. We don't have a lot of big, great news and game releases and Nintendo Direct info to talk about. We kind of can mostly focus on the fact that we're just still kind of wondering and waiting about what's going to be happening. And so I did find it interesting that Nintendo clarified a couple of things that falls in line with a lot of what we talked about here on the channel over the past couple of weeks. So yeah, I wanted to explore it a little bit more. So as a lot of us probably know, there has been some news from a Nintendo investors meeting and a Q&A session and updates about the insanely good sales for the Nintendo Switch console, as well as for Animal Crossing, and then kind of some of their other biggest titles. They gave a whole list of stuff, and every quarter we get an update about what the sales situation looks like for the Switch and its biggest titles, and it just consistently looks better and better. It is crazy, and as I've said, when the Switch first launched, people thought that maybe it was going to have a chance to crack 100 million units and maybe surpass the Nintendo Wii. I personally doubted it right at the launch, and I also doubted it through the first successful year because I just was questioning if the Switch would be around long enough to do so. But as I said, I don't know, probably a couple of months ago, I have been starting to kind of open my mind a little bit to the fact that it really might happen. It's very possible that my early on theory was wrong, and that maybe the Switch will have an opportunity to cross 100 million units, especially with how well it's selling this year with the health situation and the fact that more people seem to be more interested in it now than even they did last year. So anything could happen. The insane sales of its best games like Smash Brothers and Mario Kart and Pokemon, and of course Animal Crossing, which has just done far better than most people predicted. It's really great to see. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't even care about being right or wrong. I do, however, like seeing my favorite company doing so well, especially coming off of their least successful home console, the Wii U. And, most of you guys know I love the Wii U. I will always support and defend the good things that it did while still acknowledging its mistakes. But at the end of the day, it was a huge failure. It was catastrophic in terms of sales, and so Nintendo has made probably the biggest and best rebound in video game history. Now, bringing it back to 2020, and what might be happening as far as new games that we could play on the Nintendo Switch in 2020, that's where it's a little bit interesting, because also a part of this investors Q&A was the current CEO, Shintaro Furukawa, talking about the fact that they do still have unannounced games for 2020 that they've yet to talk about or confirm, but the fact that maybe these games could struggle to release in 2020 because the health situation, like we've been talking about for weeks and weeks, is making it hard to get some games completed. There's a fellow on Twitter known as Robert Sefazon, who I found via a My Nintendo News article, and he actually tweeted some of the translations about what Furukawa said. And this is what he had to say on Twitter. Nintendo President and CEO Shintaro Furukawa says that although the Chinese factory suspended shipments of Nintendo Switches in February, Japan faced delays in putting new units on shelves. However, the impact on overall business has been minor so far. He mentions there are other titles they plan to release this year in addition to those already announced. However, it may be difficult to finish development during the current situation as employees are working from home. Their forecast assumes they will release as planned. So this is the info, and this confirms, like I said, people joked about, stuff that a lot of us probably already knew. Like, oh my god, Nintendo has games they're making that haven't been announced, what a shocker, who would have thought? And again, it's true, and I get it. Of course we know that they're working on games. That's not a mystery. But it is interesting to hear somebody from Nintendo, in fact, their CEO Furukawa, confirming unannounced games that are planned for 2020. Again, the quote here in his translation is that they are games they plan to release this year, on top of the few that they've already announced. And it's interesting to hear him confirm that, while also confirming that, the health situation is making it harder. We know that Japan has been working within a work-from-home order, and as we talked about recently with the Nintendo Direct E3 cancellation, that having their employees working from home basically makes it, next to impossible, or at least very hard, for them to complete the Nintendo Direct and get it released. So if we take that same concept and apply it to just developing games, it makes sense that in a work-from-home situation, it's making it hard for their developers to complete their games. A lot of people have pointed out that Sakurai, when talking about developing DLC for Smash Bros., said that we've got people working from home and it's going very smoothly, so everything is on track and it's great. And so people kind of pointed that out as a reason to maybe not believe that the work from home thing is a good excuse for not having the Nintendo Direct. And, I don't know what to say about that, in the sense that, yes, Sakurai said that, and it was certainly good to hear. My only guess is that either he's saying that because specifically what they're doing with Smash DLC is easy to do from home, whereas maybe a regular video game development isn't easy, or maybe, and we have to be open to this, guys, maybe he just said that as like a positive PR spin when in fact it's not really true. And when you look at the fact that we were already supposed to be getting this first DLC fighter, the ARMS fighter, but when they announced it at the Nintendo Direct Mini, they said it's actually delayed by a little bit. It's going to take a little bit longer. The character's just not ready yet, and they're going to give us more later, including what the character is. They didn't even tell us the character. They only told us the franchise the character is from. And so maybe that means that Sakurai wasn't being completely truthful when he said that. Because if everything's just been going super swimmingly and Nintendo and Sakurai are having no issues at the work-from-home thing, why wouldn't the character be ready to go? Why couldn't they have told us who the actual character is going to be and that the release date for the first character was going to be on time? None of that's true, so yeah, maybe the work-from-home thing is just making it harder to complete games. And I think that the other reason I find it very interesting that Furukawa was willing to confirm that there are unannounced 2020 games that they've yet to talk about is because I think that that does showcase, when you look at where we are here, we're in May, the 5th month of the year. We're coming up on the halfway point already, guys. We're only like 6 or 7 weeks away from the halfway point to the year. And one would have to think that according to how Nintendo typically reveals games, and how usually that's pretty close to the release date of that game, you would have to think that a lot of the biggest games for 2020 and any other normal year, Nintendo would have already told us about. Let's just pretend. Let's just make up and pretend that, Pikmin 4 was going to be coming out at the end of this year, September, October, November time. Let's pretend Pikmin 4 was a 2020 holiday game. Here we are in May, and I think that if that was true, Nintendo in any other year would have already told us about it. I mean, I really think that there's a really, really good chance that they would have. As well as any other games they have planned to release in August, September, October, and November, right? I mean, we're talking about, 5, 6, 7 months from now. Nintendo, with their biggest games, would already have let us know that those games were planning to release later this year. Sometimes games get delayed. Fire Emblem Three Houses got delayed. Animal Crossing got delayed. Yes, those things happen. But as far as the initial window of release, I think that Nintendo typically would like to have already told us about some of these games. Then you have the fact that there's games we already know about that they don't seem to be giving us updates about. Bayonetta 3, Breath of the Wild 2, No More Heroes 3, obviously Metroid Prime 4, but I think that's so far away that I wouldn't have expected that this year anyway. And so all of these things, and Furukawa confirming this, just kind of shows me what I think I've been saying for a while, that some people agree with and some people have pushed back on, that yes, Nintendo has slowed their business down. That is, to me, the confirmation that their 2020 is operating differently than normal. And I firmly believe they probably planned a bigger, more steady stream of games in 2020 before the health crisis slowed everything down, which confirms that 2020 is a slow year. I know that a lot of people want to say 2020 is not slow. Look at all these indie games, and look at Bravely Default 2 and No More Heroes 3. Look at all these great games. And as I've had to say over and over again on videos, you guys might be sick of hearing me say this, but as I've had to say, those kinds of games, the current release schedule, that's half indie games and half Xbox 360 ports, like, that doesn't make a typical kick-ass Nintendo year. It makes just a fine year with some games releasing on the console, but look at Nintendo's best years on the Switch, the Wii U, and the Wii, we're getting way bigger high-profile stuff, first and third party, than things like Burnout Paradise and Catherine and Borderlands 2, like, you know, BioShock from last gen. These are fine games, but they're not big games that define your console's year. And so all of this, as I've already said, just confirms that, yeah, we've got stuff to wait for because Nintendo is being slow this year. And I am really glad that they finally confirmed, at least in an investor's Q&A, that the health situation is impacting their business, and some of these games that they plan to release in 2020 might not make 2020, which is why we haven't heard about these games when otherwise we probably already would know about them. It's nice to hear them say this. It is frustrating to me, though, that they only addressed this and confirmed this in an investors meeting. And I get that, you know, when you run a business like Nintendo, some things are only meant for those kinds of forums and those kinds of people. I get that. But they also are a front-facing, customer-facing business. We're a very passionate, committed, educated, and aware community in the gaming community, so we're very much aware of what our favorite companies are doing. Nintendo is a company that constantly is giving messaging about their release schedules and games to their consumer, you know, via Nintendo Directs and press releases and trailers on their YouTube channel and their Twitter. So why wouldn't they have already been willing to just tell us, you know, you can do it in a different way? In an investors meeting, it's going to be boring. It's going to be Furukawa standing in front of a projector and a PowerPoint presentation telling people, hey, we've got games, but the health crisis means we're not sure when they're going to release. We'll figure it out later. That's how you do it there. But they can also give it to us in a different way, via a tweet, via a small YouTube video, via a Nintendo Direct, or even just a darned press release. I mean, they could say, hey, you, the gamer, our customers, here's what's going on. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago in a video I made where I just was basically asking Nintendo to just be transparent. It's not that I'm not trying to demand games, and I'm not trying to tell Nintendo to ignore the health crisis and make stuff happen faster. I don't care that things have to be slow and work from home makes it hard to make games and make Nintendo Directs. I'm cool with that. Nintendo can take the whole year off as far as I'm concerned. It's fine. But I think that at least not keeping it a secret and letting the community and us, the customers, know is something that's probably fair to ask for. And so it's great that we're getting it through a third-party press release and translation from this investors meeting. Like, it's good that we're getting it and that somebody finally said it. But it's a little bit frustrating that they only said it to the people that are giving them money through investments and not to us who give them money through buying their products, right? Does that make sense to you guys? I'm not mad about this, and it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just frustrating, and it makes me wonder why Nintendo does these kinds of things. Like, you don't have to be that secretive, Nintendo. Like, we're smart. A lot of us are mature. We can handle it. Just tell us what's going on, and that would be fine. Anywho, this is my breakdown of the situation as I see it. This is all interesting info. A lot of it's good info. They're making games for this year. Maybe some of them will make it out. Nintendo's killing it in sales. That's something you always want to see from a company that you like and support. So it's not that this is bad info, but I did want to put my kind of unique spin on what I think this information is saying, and the fact that Nintendo confirmed some of this stuff. It's like, yeah, I get that it's obvious on the surface, but I think if you dig a little bit deeper and go beneath the surface, you find that it maybe says more than what it seems like, and that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to talk about today. So hopefully you guys found this entertaining and interesting and informative. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about my breakdown? What is your own personal breakdown? What are your opinions and thoughts over this information and what it says? Or if you think it's just not saying anything and maybe I just wasted 15 minutes talking about it to you. I didn't waste it because I enjoyed doing it, but maybe you found it a waste. And so, hey, you want to yell at me? You have fun doing that. I do want to hear what you guys think about all this stuff. So with that, this video, of course, is a wrap. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time in another video.